All right, let's talk about one of the most misunderstood elements on the entire planet. Because I promise you, the truth about it is so much weirder and honestly so much more interesting than you think.
So let's just start with a few quick questions. Is this stuff in the food you're eating, like right now?
Is it possible it was forged inside an exploding star billions of years before our planet was even a thing?
And get this, is it used to help keep helicopters flying straight? The answer to all of those questions is a huge, surprising yes. We're talking about
That's right, uranium, and no, not the glowing green rods from cartoons. We're talking about the real deal, and in the next few minutes, we're going to uncover its incredible true story.
Okay, so let's dive right in. First things first, we need to completely reset what you think you know. Forget everything you've seen in the movies. The reality of uranium is, well, it's a lot more down to earth.
And that's the key right there. It's a naturally occurring part of our planet's crust. It's been here since the very beginning, mixed into pretty much all the rock and soil around us. It's not some man-made monster. It's a fundamental piece of our world.
And when I say it's been here a while, I am not kidding. The most common form of it, uranium-238, has a half-life of 4.5 billion years. That's how long it takes for half of it to decay, and it's about the same age as the Earth itself. This stuff is truly ancient, created in the heart of a supernova long before our solar system was even born.
Now this is where it gets really interesting, because uranium isn't just one thing. It comes in 3 main varieties, and each one has a totally different personality.
You can think of it like coffee. Natural uranium is like the raw bean, mostly normal stuff with just a tiny bit of that caffeine kick. Enriched uranium is your triple shot of espresso. We concentrate that caffeine to make it really powerful. And depleted uranium, that's kind of like the leftover coffee grounds. It's really dense, super useful for other things, but has almost no kick left in it.
What's wild is that over 99% of the uranium we find out in the wild is that stable, less radioactive kind, U-238. It's that teeny tiny fraction of the other version, U-235, that gets all the attention.
So what do we do with all these different types? Well, that concentrated, enriched stuff is what fuels nuclear power plants. But the leftover depleted uranium is a supermaterial. Because it's so dense, it's used as a counterbalance in helicopter rotors, it's used for radiation shielding in hospitals, and even in some military armor.
Okay, so if this stuff is in rocks and soil everywhere, that has to mean it gets into, well, everything else, right? Including us. And believe it or not, the main delivery system might just be your grocery bag. For the general public, the science is pretty clear. Our biggest exposure comes from the food we eat and the water we drink, with just a tiny bit from the air we breathe. It's just an unavoidable, everyday part of living on planet Earth. And here's the most surprising part of all. The biggest source in our diet is from root vegetables. Things like potatoes and carrots absorb it directly from the soil they grow in. So yes, there's a very good chance there's a trace amount of uranium on your dinner plate tonight.
So what happens when you eat that potato? Let's follow that tiny bit of uranium on its little journey through your body. And don't worry, for most of it, it's a very quick trip.
First, you ingest it. But your body is actually terrible at absorbing it, so the vast majority of it just passes straight through you and, well, leaves. Of the small amount that is absorbed into your bloodstream, some gets deposited around the body, but most of it is filtered out by your kidneys and exits through your urine within a couple of weeks. Now, of that tiny bit your body does hang on to, about 2/3 of it ends up in your bones. It can hang out there for a few months before it's eventually released, almost like a temporary guest that doesn't overstay its welcome.
So this is the crucial point. We all hear uranium and we think one thing, radiation. But what if I told you that for the kind we're exposed to every day, that is not the main concern at all?
This is probably the biggest misconception out there. We're all programmed to think of radiation burns and nuclear fallout. But for natural and depleted uranium, the science points in a completely different direction.
And there it is, a direct quote from the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. Just let that sink in for a second. The primary risk isn't radioactive, it's chemical. Uranium actually acts a lot like other heavy metals, like lead or mercury.
So what's the actual target? The kidneys. In very high doses, and I mean far, far beyond what you'd ever get from food, uranium's chemical properties can damage the kidneys as they work overtime to filter it out of your blood. It's a toxicity issue, not a radiation issue.
So we've established that uranium is a natural, ancient part of our world that we eat every day, and its primary risk is chemical, not radioactive. The takeaway here isn't to be scared, it's just to be aware.
And the advice is pretty straightforward. Since most of the uranium on root vegetables is just from soil clinging to the outside, washing them well really does make a difference. And hey, if you live in an area known for naturally high levels of uranium in the ground and you get your water from a private well, it might be worth getting your water tested. Simple as that.
And that really brings us to the end of this. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? If the truth about something as notorious as uranium is this surprising, what other misconceptions are we all carrying around? What other everyday elements have an incredible hidden story just waiting to be told? Thanks for joining me on this one.